Greetings, welcome to thctrust.org. This is Tex Masson. We are going to do a video on the promissory note. Foremost, we're going to talk about the promissory note regarding it as a general deposit, the way that we have tendered the promissory note when we didn't have any better understanding, how we got into these mortgage situations. And so we're going to talk about the general as opposed to a specific or special deposit, and with emphasis on the fact that it seems moving forward we only want to do specific and special deposits when we're doing banking or issuing private instruments. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that. I want to give a shout out to the Moses group, which is they have the same purpose as thctrust.org. That's one of the organizations we're researching with. So I want to say thank you to them, and thank you to those who support our organization by donating $24 a month. You know, you guys are the ones who's funding and allowing me the opportunity to join with these other organizations and share our research. So thank you for that. This is my way of saying thank you to you who support our organization. This series of 3 videos, which is going to represent the first real in-depth videos that I do about discharging debt. This particular session we're going to deal with promissory notes. So to get all of this information, to get this PDF that I wrote that I'm reading from, along with all of the downloads and the resources that are linked into this PDF, you have to visit the website. That's www.thctrust.org, thctrust.org, not .com. I'm going to change this on the fly. Many people, due to lack of disclosure or preoccupation or an incomplete education of public policy, fail to comprehend that the promissory note is tendered for value, and we can reasonably conclude such fact from the hidden truth tucked away in the definition of deposit under 12 U.S.C. 1813L, where it establishes that your promissory note was received as value by the bank. Incidentally, 12 U.S.C. is the policies under Title 12 of the United States Code. That's where you find the policies for banks and banking within the United States. So under that policy, their definition for deposit clearly shows that your promissory note was received as value, as cash is another way to look at it, by the bank. My research also indicates that a loan is a result of a general deposit of your promissory note with the bank. So if you go back to what occurred earlier, that's the deposit of the promissory note is cash, but a general deposit is a loan. Now what a general deposit is a deposit that wasn't special or specific. You didn't have any specific or special instructions accommodating that deposit. So all the deposits that we typically have done that have resulted in a loan, although we haven't been given anything of value, all of those deposits are classified as general deposits. And if you look up what a general deposit is in a Black's Law Dictionary, it shows you that a general deposit is what allows them to separate the liability and the asset side of a ledger, and consequently give you the liability side while they hold on to and reinvest or fractionalize the asset side, making you work to repay the liability side. So that's the creation of the loan. Nothing of value was given to you except that which was given to you from yourself. But that's the creation of the loan, and that's the result of the general deposit. So that's why we're dealing with general and special deposits. Even though we're talking about a promissory note, when we're thinking of a promissory note for the purpose of discharging an obligation, we have to be thinking about the cash value that goes along with the promissory note and how to use it, which means we have to do a special, or even more importantly, a specific deposit as opposed to a general deposit. Now you have to look these words up in the Black's Law Dictionary, or just look them up in any law dictionary to get a better understanding. So my research indicates, and again you can find this in the dictionary, that a loan is the result of a general deposit of your promissory note with the bank. The bank cashes the asset and owes the credit to an account. Just like any time the bank takes in commercial paper, it has to credit some account somewhere. Because our deposit was general, we don't really have any say in what the Federal Reserve does with that asset, what account they credit, how they fractionalize it, how they use it to increase the deficit or the Federal Reserve notes or the elastic currency, right? Because we gave it as a general deposit, perishing for our lack of knowledge, becoming the surety on the obligation. A general deposit, as opposed to a special deposit, occurs if a special and or specific instructions are not included. Generally, courts hold that in order for a security, such as your promissory note, to hold value, then such determination would be predicated upon whether or not you are keeping books. And that really should not only be, whether your promissory note has a value, whether you have a security entitlement. I think that's actually what they're talking about, if I remember correctly. So the courts are saying what determines whether you have a security entitlement or a title of a claim into the security, into the money that's created from your promissory note, is predicated upon whether or not you have a habit of keeping books. And you can read about what I'm talking about in this PDF I put here. It's called UCC 8 and Book Entry Securities. Again, visit www.thctrust.org and you will find this under the tab that deals with discharging debt and promissory notes. This is where this lecture will be found. And this is another one of these jewels, man. I know people are not going to take the time and click this, but you should really go and click this and read through this. This is going to give you a more in-depth understanding of this thing about being a secured party and how to operate, how to use these UCCs. This particular document, as well as Article 8, deals with the assignment of securities, transferring securities, and the registering of security interests. So one thing that I'm learning, and one thing that you guys will learn when you get into private negotiable instruments, is that if you're, just as we said here, if you're not keeping books, and just to make it clear, your private books is the UCC one. And it's funny, when you read this PDF written by some high-level attorneys, many of them that's the one thing they have not figured out. They figured out everything else, but they're going back and forth trying to determine what is the law talking about in regard to private securities being, what is the book entry on private securities. It's been a while since I read this, but it's simple. It's the UCC. Because they're saying, well, it's not the Securities Exchange Commission, it's not this, it's not that. Anybody who's been studying this stuff, especially the UCC, knows that this is the key right here. So, not to get off the subject, not to go too far over people's head. So let's leave that there for now. I also wrote in here that I would presume that a Federal Reserve Bank person would use a general deposit to create Federal Reserve notes. Just like I said, if you give a general deposit, the Federal Reserve does whatever they're going to do with it to benefit themselves, which is probably create more Federal Reserve notes. And then you have to do probably like a 1099 OID and some of that technology to redeem that security. But moving forward, we want to be able to do special and specific deposit so that it can be used for the specific purpose, and the lawful money could be used to discharge or discharge whatever obligation is necessary for us to complete the contract, release the collateral from escrow, acquire whatever it is we're trying to acquire. General deposits seem to be used only for gifting, contributions, abandoning funds, donating, or worst case scenario, subjecting a surety to debt slavery. I would not attempt to issue an instrument without the security interest already being recorded. Then you would assign the security interest to a fiduciary to effectuate its use in commerce. This, what I'm talking about, will make more sense, I guess, when we get to the promissory note demonstration. But I guess what I'm saying, for a lot of people that's kind of new to understanding, promissory notes, private commercial instruments, is that from my experience and research, is you're not going to pass go and you're not going to go anywhere if your UCC is not already recorded and a copy of that isn't going with your instrument. Now, granted, there probably, there has to be some certain things expressed in that UCC too, but the UCC is of the utmost importance. It kind of goes back to what I was just saying is talked about in this PDF right here. If you're not keeping private books, then everything you're given is, to some degree, that's more consistent with giving general deposits and not wanting a security entitlement or any value for your issues. Okay, so we're about to wrap this up. Now, think about this. This is just some food for your brain. And after this, I guess we'll go into the demonstration video. After this, we'll go into the actual, we'll go lightly over the promissory note demonstration, something that I created that I believe I'm going to make available for the premium members at thctrust.org. Okay, so but think about this, and I'm saying this to help you with your study. You might not understand all the terms that I'm going to say, as you may not have understood all the terms that I said in this video, but you can look them up. But these are to get you to think and to be able to decipher and separate the differences of money, currency, lawful money, legal tender, and all of those things. This is just to kind of help a little bit. Okay, there are Federal Reserve notes, and then there's a concept known as legal tender, which Federal Reserve notes happen to be legal tender. And then there are other types of legal tender, such as bills, checks, notes, promissory notes, and Federal Reserve notes, as we previously said. And then there is lawful money, and lawful money depends on a specific law. In our case, our lawful money is dictated by the public policy 731048 Stat 112, also known as HJR 192. That is the law which dictates our lawful money, which requires a medium of exchange, but there's an exemption for the substance part, meaning in our lawful money there has to be a medium of exchange with an exemption, and that's kind of like our lawful money, which is also legal tender. You write bills and notes, which to some degree, from my understanding, is lawful money written against other obligations. So those in effect are also legal tender, along with your Federal Reserve notes, your checks, your promissory notes, and other things that can be exchanged. We also have money, which is not lawful money. Money has the substance element, so it's a medium of exchange based on substance. Gold, silver, copper. The substance element is there. So that's money, but see, lawful money has created an exemption from the substance part. So when you look at things like 12 U.S.C. 411, that is showing us that's a redemption in lawful money, so to speak. And I didn't dive into what I'm talking to the 12 U.S.C. 411, because at the end of this lecture right here, I put three of the most powerful PDFs, pieces of literature that I ever came across that has condensed everything that you really need to quite understand about discharging debt, promissory notes, and redeeming obligations in lawful money, which is your commercial exemption and remedy. And throughout this lesson, I guess when we get into the next part of it, I will also try to break some of that stuff down in a way where you can easily comprehend and understand what's going on, how the exemption works, at least according to my understanding. So, but just to reiterate and to go over what I was stating one more time, there are Federal Reserve notes, and then there's legal tender, a concept known as legal tender, which Federal Reserve notes is within that category of legal tender. It's inclusive. I mean, the legal tender is inclusive of Federal Reserve notes, as well as promissory notes, as well as checks, as well as lawful money, which is your instruments written against obligations, which lawful money depends on certain policies. So it's your instruments written on certain policies, like Public Law 73, 1048, Stat 112, HJR 192, 12 U.S.C. 411, 12 U.S.C. 95, A2. This is your lawful money, which is also legal tender. And then you have money, which is gold and silver, which is not legal tender because it's been outlawed. So that's kind of just what's going on in commerce. All this happened because of an executive order number 6102 of April 5th, 1933, where the right to possess gold for monetary purposes by an individual, partnership, association, or corporation was made unlawful. So then that's when, you can look up, you can Google James Trafficant Congressional Record, right, where he kind of breaks down what happened at that time and how, based on this order, they had to come in with a bond or obligation, which changed the whole money game, basically, which created the commercial exemption. And now the commercial exemption is the lawful money of account, so to speak. Now, all of that, what I just kind of covered, is kind of necessary if you're going to do business on a higher level. And by the higher level, I mean above the Federal Reserve level, which is dealing with the Treasury, which is ultimately what I think a lot of us are trying to go. And I'm just sharing this information because, listen, if you're listening, it doesn't really matter. I know I've had coaching sessions with judges, IRS agents, police officers, and pretty soon it's going to be an attorney who runs a law firm. So I don't really know everything, but I'm just sincere and I'm researching this stuff, and I don't hate nobody. There's no enemies and all of this type of stuff. I presume there is, but right now I have enough business to do administering, correcting the affairs of my estate, and redeeming these lost securities. Anyway, this is the first video in this series of videos dealing with, I guess, discharging debt, and more particularly the promissory note. And now everything I just went over in here, so in these links down here, most of them deal with discharging debt. The last one is a link to another website. I'm not really endorsing them, but I'm just going to keep it here because they have some very powerful information. They got all the United States statutes and laws that deal with promissory notes in one place. But one thing that I want you to understand is a promissory note is legal tender, from my understanding. Now, by the way, none of this is legal advice. This is from my research, right? This is educational purposes only, whatever. My research shows that a promissory note is legal tender. Just because it's legal tender in itself does not discharge a debt, right? Discharging a debt is an entirely different thing. But I would say the requisite of using legal tender is a part of discharging debt. So if you're going to discharge debt, you have to use a legal tender. You can't discharge a debt with gold or silver because it's not a legal tender. Or you can't discharge a debt with some instrument that you created that does not meet the requisites of a legal tender. So I'm saying that to say this: the evidence or fact that you can negotiate or tender a promissory note in a transaction is what you're going to kind of be looking for when you look at these laws showing that a promissory note is legal tender and that it can be used in commerce and that it's cash and all of that. But the fact of using the value of it, right, using the private side credit and directing it toward discharging an obligation, that goes back into the lawful money and the commercial exemption. So there's a little bit of two concepts there, and you may study them together independently. I just wanted to draw your attention to that. So by the way, if you're enjoying this video, you're only getting pieces of it, and you're definitely not able to download the at least 3 or 4 PDFs. Some of the most powerful stuff that I've ever read that has really guided, that has really helped me in my research. You really got to get this stuff. So visit www.thctrust.org. And I will also say this too: if you join the premium subscription group, please understand that nothing on the site is instantaneous. So if you join the premium subscription group, don't keep trying to join again and again. Give me a few hours and your membership will be updated, and you will receive an email that lets you know that, and it'll give you some more information about the premium subscription group, which is for your donation of $24 a month. Thank you, and we will be moving on to the next video here shortly.